Welcome today. Here we are on August 16th, 2017, with Voja Antonić, the inventor of the Galaxia computer, a famous computer in the former Republic of Yugoslavia. And thank you so much for being with us today and for bringing along a Galaxia for us to look at as well.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
So tell us a little bit about how the idea for the Galaxia came about and a bit about its early history.
About the early history, I think that the first beginning of computer history in Serbia was at year 1960, when we had our first computer. Its name was NAR, it was CER, CER-10. It was the computer which was produced completely in Serbia, and it was developed in Serbia by Serbian engineers. It was developed between 1956 and 1960 year. And at that time, there were only 6 countries in Europe which had their own computers. It was Poland, France, Great Britain, Russia, Germany, and Yugoslavia. I said that I live in Serbia, but it was actually, we were a republic in former Yugoslavia. After that, the borders have changed, and now I lived in Serbia maybe about 1 month ago, and I moved to US.
I see. So, welcome.
Thank you. And that computer, that was, I was talking about CER computer from 1960. It was developed in Vinča. It's a part of Belgrade, actually, and it was created, but I don't know where. There were some tens of thousands of electronic tubes, transistors, and relays, and so on. But it was a computer which was actually operational, and it was working very well. I know one interesting fact from the history of that computer. When at that time there was a war between Israel and Egypt.
Was it Egypt? 73?
Yes. No. It was 60s.
67.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yes, that's possible. Yes.
Right. 6-Day War.
Yes.
Yeah.
And some crypted message was decrypted by that computer, and President Tito, which was a president of Yugoslavia, he sent a special messenger by plane who took the decrypted message to President Nasser. Then there were some political games at that time. At that time, I don't know anything about politics because I'm not interested in it. So please, sorry if I made some mistake. But that was the proof that that computer could do the job. Of course. After some time, there was a wide range of CER computers which were developed from that computer on. Okay. It was developed. Then I know that there was after CER-10 there was CER-20, 30, CER 200, 202, 203, and the whole family of computers which were based on that first one.
And in what market were these computers headed? Was it process control or consumer or business or science and engineering? Who used these computers?
I think that the range was quite wide. Military, banking, and science. I think so. It was used predominantly in Yugoslavia, in former Yugoslavia, and in Russia. It was sold to Russia also.
Okay.
But I don't know too much about it.
Tell us about the state of computing in Yugoslavia in the 70s, before the Galaxia. What kind of people used computers? Could you go to university and become a computer scientist, for example? Or how widely used were computers?
I did not know too much about computers in 70s, especially in early 70s. At that time, there was even not a term computer in use in Yugoslavia. I guess that almost nobody knew anything about computers at that time. The legal term at that time was electronic brain. If you mentioned computer to anyone at that time, hardly anyone could tell you what is a computer. So I guess that it was used predominantly in banking and some institution that I didn't know anything about them at that time. Maybe some special purpose which is not available to the people, to the public.
Right,
to that
like military
time.
or something.
So it was something like magic to me when I was reading about it. But even in elementary school, I was making some concept. I of course at the time I couldn't connect them with computers, but in the elementary school I was experimenting with transistors at that time, because transistors, there were germanium transistors then, and you couldn't buy them in Belgrade. I lived in Belgrade. You couldn't buy them there, but in Zagreb. They were produced in Serbia, but you could buy them in Croatia. I don't know why. I had to travel to Zagreb to buy germanium transistors. I remember they were AC540 and AC541, the first transistors which I bought in Zagreb. It was in the street Frankopanska. There was a special shop where you could, the only shop where you could buy transistors. And when I was in Zagreb a few years ago, my friends took me to the same shop which is still there.
Oh, really?
You cannot buy germanium transistors now.
Right.
But it's the same shop at the same place. I couldn't believe for so many years.
That's
yes,
amazing.
I was so excited to see that. Well, I bought that transistors and I experimented with them. So my lack of knowledge in electronics made me think about the digital approach only. So you don't have to know too much about electronics to use it for digital circuits. So the first thing that I invented was flip-flop. Flip-flop. I thought that I invented it. It was a circuit which has two possible states with the same hardware, and it was just like a magic to me. Nothing has changed. Not a single molecule moved, but it has another state. It was just like magic to me. So it was my very early age. I was in elementary school, and I didn't know that's something, that it's so important fact. I thought that I was inventor then, but of course I didn't know that it was invented long ago.
Well, you invented it on your own, which is quite remarkable. And to play with transistors when you're in elementary school is pretty amazing.
Yes. After that, I built my first circuits with transistor, digital circuits.
Mm-hmm.
First digital clocks with Nixie tubes, of course, and so on. But I still couldn't get it. What is computer? How it works? And where's the catch about the computer? It was very hard to me. So once I got a very interesting book about just the Z80. It was a time when the Z80 appeared. I think that it was year maybe 76 or 77 when the first Z80 microprocessor appeared on the market. And I've got some book about it, programming and instructions. And the moment that I opened, I remember very well that moment when I opened the first page of that manual. Actually, I saw the first instruction load data from one register to another register. And at that moment, everything became clear to me. I remember very well that I was so excited I couldn't sleep for a whole night after that. Everything was clear to me. What is microprocessor? How it works? Why it works it that way? How you can do the program which works something significant? And not only that, at that moment, it was also clear to me how I can make my own microprocessor. which is really, I know that it's strange when I say it that way, but I really remember that moment very well.
Your own computer or your own microprocessor?
Microprocessor for the beginning. Okay. Of course, Z80 microprocessors were very expensive at that time. Mm-hmm. I ordered 2 of them from US and waiting for them to arrive, I made my first EEPROM programmer, which was a very strange concept without microprocessor, of course. Later, some people asked me, wouldn't it be more simple to do it with a microprocessor? But I said, yes, but who will program that EEPROM for that microprocessor to work in that programmer? Mm. So I made that programmer. It was a very painful way to program the EEPROM. You had to turn some knobs, some buttons, mm-hmm. and to watch the display in octal code, and to press some buttons to program one byte and then program next byte and so on. Of course, I didn't have assembler, didn't have computer at that time. I had to assemble the program manually on the paper, and that was really painful. But I didn't know at that time that there are some better ways, some more comfortable ways to assemble the program. So I was just satisfied with it.
I'm curious about you importing parts from the West. Was that very difficult, or was it pretty easy?
Yes, it was very, very difficult. It was very difficult. I had to go to Germany because it was not so far from Yugoslavia. I went to Munich, and then I had to smuggle the parts because such was the law. You couldn't import anything which is more expensive than 50 Deutschmarks at that time. Of course, when you are going to so far, 1,000 kilometers, you are not supposed to bring just goods in that value. You have to bring some more chips and electronic components. And so I had to be a smuggler at the beginning.
Now, the Deutschmark was very strong at this time, wasn't it? Worth
Yes.
about $1 roughly, US?
Yes, I think so. But still, the 50 Deutschmark was not enough
Yeah.
to start
of course
to
not.
start creating anything.
Yeah, and to that end, I'm jumping ahead a bit here, but I know the Galaxia, when it first came out, was 30,000 dinars. Dinars?
Dinars, yes.
Dinars,
I don't remember exactly the price. I think that the parts for Galaxia were about 240 Deutschmarks.
Okay.
The same value in dinars.
Ah, okay. Yeah. So I meant to ask, like, how much was a monthly wage at the time?
I'm not sure about it, actually. I think that...
Like, if you wanted to buy a Galaxy, would you have to have a pretty good job to be able to afford that? Or could a student buy it? Or
Well, I think that you could buy it with maybe 1/2 or 1 month salary.
Okay.
Yes, I
Right.
think so.
Yeah.
But it was not the first computer that I built.
Okay,
There were
sorry, go back. Tell us.
Yes. There were several of them. The first computer which I bought actually was the RS-80. It was ordered from US.
Oh.
Again I couldn't just import it. So I asked my friend from US to send me in 2 packages. It has some flat cable between PCBs without connector. It was soldered to those PCBs, and they had to cut that cable with scissors, and they just couldn't believe that they have to cut it. They will destroy. I said, don't worry, I will repair it.
Yeah.
Somehow it arrived as a technical dump, is it? So garbage, technical garbage.
Okay. Yeah.
And I paid no custom tax
Good.
for that.
Oh, yeah. So they probably saw the cut cable and thought, oh, this must be garbage.
Yes, sure. And it was split in 2 packages, and I got those 2 packages maybe in 1 month between.
So was a TRS-80 model?
Model 2.
Model 2.
Model 2,
Okay.
yes. It was with level 2 basic.
Right.
Was it Model 2 or... I don't know. It was a level 2 basic.
Okay.
And that's it. Then after that, I started building my own computers. I learned a lot from just disassembling the firmware from that computer. It's basic, and I learned a lot about making the operational system concept for the computer. Right. So I made my first computer after that. Then I made my text editor, which was in its own hardware. So I started just producing those computers, different computers for different things. And one of them was actually the graphical working station, is it correct? To do the computer animation, because I started studying film editing in a high film school in Belgrade. It was a faculty of dramatic arts, I think so. And I was interested in film at that time and movies, and I made my first graphical working station for computer animation at that time. I've never seen how it looks. There were no 3D rendering software at that time, but somehow I made it, and it was, of course, the special hardware for it. It was with the graphic resolution 300 by 400 pixels, with it was a grayscale with 8 levels of gray, because I didn't have the color monitor at that time, so that there was no sense of making the color graphical unit.
What was the microprocessor?
The microprocessor was Z80H, which was pretty faster. It was 6 megahertz,
Okay.
and the software was, I made the software in BASIC language, so it was very, very slow. But the concept of that software is actually equal to the concept which today's 3D rendering software uses. I had an object, but only in wireframe mode. I had an object which was defined in the space with 3 dimensions, and the camera with the defined position, angle, field of view, and so on. So I made my first shot of that computer animation in year 1979. 1979, and I took the first shot. It is on YouTube now. That shot, it lasts only 6 seconds. You know how I made it? Of course, there were no hard disks and no mass data storage system.
Right.
So I took one 16 millimeter Bolex camera from my friend, which works on TV, and that camera had a single step mode, single shot mode, single frame mode.
Mm-hmm.
And I made the solenoid which can shoot one frame by frame when computer gives it a command to make one frame.
Mm-hmm.
So I put that camera in front of the monitor, and monochromatic monitor, green monitor, and to avoid that annoying noise, I made some wooden box over it. It was maybe 1.5 meters. It was quite big, so it looked to me just like coffin. But it prevented me from that noise, because you had maybe it took maybe 1 or 2 minutes for one frame to let BASIC draw all pixels in wireframe mode. And then the big solenoid was activated, which was pretty noisy. And then computers just deletes the whole frame and starts drawing the new one.
Mm-hmm.
So
were you pursuing a career at this time, or were you studying, or like?
I was just studying.
Was this a hobby? Or?
It was a hobby, yes.
Okay, so what were you doing?
Actually, yes, it was a hobby at that time. I was just studying, that's all. And
where were you studying?
In Belgrade. It was a faculty on the
University?
dramatic arts. Yes.
Okay.
And then I took that film, that footage, to my professor, Marko Babac, and showed it to him. We went we saw that shot, and he was really shocked. He never saw some picture which was created by computer, and this was moving picture also. So he asked another professor, Nikola Majdak, to see it. They were both really shocked, and they said, "Oh, will it ever be possible to model and animate the human figure, and I said, no way, there's no way. It was year 79.
Yes. Interesting. And so, did anything happen with this machine? Was it commercialized, or
No.
was it just an experiment?
It was never commercialized. Its fate was just like with all my other projects. I needed components to start building another project. So I had to disassemble it, and so it was ruined and just dropped.
Yeah.
So I have only one very, very short TV shot which I found on YouTube, where at one moment that graphical working station is visible, just a part of it. But I keep it as just as a relic.
Yes. Very good. What did you work on next?
After that, I started working in the company Electronica Engineering in Belgrade, and I made several projects for alarm stations with them, microprocessor alarms, which were also not known at that time. It was maybe year 80 and 81. It was always also some new concept to make the alarm station with microprocessor. And also I made a computer, the home computer, which could be, I thought that it will be interesting for them to start producing it and selling it. It was named EL82, and the problem with that computer, maybe it could be commercially successful if we started producing it at the same moment, immediately. But unfortunately, they thought that there is plenty of time. Now we have a computer, it's our computer, and we can wait and make the tactics as we wish, and we shall see what we shall do with it. So the time has passed, and it was obsolete, of course.
Okay.
It was rather complication, heavy and expensive. And my next idea was how I can make it simple and cheap. And that's how the idea for Galaxia was born. Just
Great.
As simple and as cheap as possible.
I wanted to ask you, at this time, the Galaxia came out, I think it was 7 years after the Altair?
Yes.
Is that about right?
Yes.
So would it have been possible for people to import an Altair themselves, or is it just not allowed or too expensive? Or
you see, in those conditions, we were all masters of smuggling, unfortunately, but that's the truth. And most of those Galaxia computers that were built actually with smuggled material components. There were some organized selling of material, but it was also halfway in the crime, because such was the law. Everything is forbidden. You cannot do anything, and I cannot explain that, but it's really hard to understand. But
yes.
But it was so. If you want to do something, you're against the law. That's it.
And yet it was okay for you to sell the machines once they were assembled?
No. I didn't sell
not
anything.
You personally,
no.
but just as a kit? People,
yeah, if you are a company, then you can sell. But if you are a person,
yeah.
Yes, then you cannot sell anything.
Right. So tell us about the story in that magazine that introduced the Galaxia, and what happened. I'm very interested in how the magazine and the computer worked together to make this. I think there were over 8,000 Galaxias sold.
Yes, it was.
So
I was
pretty
shocked
popular
to hear that number. Also,
Yeah.
you see, I just built the first Galaxia computer just to see how simple it can be and still work. And it worked fine, and it was simple. And I said, why wouldn't I just publish it somewhere as the do-it-yourself project and let anybody who wants make it with his hands? Why not? But there was not such a magazine which could accept it. Luckily, one of my friends said, there is a new magazine which will be started. Its name has to be Computers in Your Home. Actually, računari u vašoj kući. It was the first name of that magazine. And the first issue should be released at the end of year 83. And it was just maybe 6 months ahead from that moment when I made the first sample of Galaxia computer. And I said, well, I'll try, I'll talk with those guys, maybe they will accept it to publish that do-it-yourself project.
You mentioned earlier that computers were called giant brains. How would you say that in your language?
They were called electronic brains. Electronic brains. Elektronski mozak. Yes.
And so not computer, electronic brains, they were called.
They were just computers, but we didn't have that term in 60s.
Okay, but
when you look at the press from that time, you will see only the term electronic brain.
Right. But once the Galaxia came out, we're calling
yes,
them computers now?
Yes, because at the late 70s, the first computers started, and then the term computer was legal.
I see.
In Serbia
at
that time, so we imported that term together with the first computers.
Tell me, I want to dig a little bit into the technical aspects of the Galaxia, and tell me first of all about the circuit board. It was a single layer circuit board. Did you have that made in Yugoslavia, the board?
Yes, sure.
Yeah.
The first boards I made myself by hand, not
Really?
by chemical process, but
Wow.
by hand, and just cutting a foil with the art knife.
Yes.
So I
and drilling holes too.
Yes,
right?
and drawing holes by hand, of course.
Oh wow.
And
it's very difficult.
yes, it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
So those guys which were preparing the first issue of that magazine were actually, they were very, very happy when they heard about that idea. They said, yes, we shall do it. And from that moment on, everything was easy. I was just finalizing my original firmware for that computer. So the concept for the hardware was my original concept. So I wanted to introduce my original concept for firmware, for operating system and basic language.
Right.
And I did it, but the only thing that I was not familiar with and I didn't know how to do it was arithmetics, floating point arithmetics. So I had to steal it somehow from level 1 basic, and I did it. So the arithmetics in Galaxia was actually stolen, but everything else was my product.
And so this was basically a construction article in the magazine, right?
Yep.
People would read it. It would explain how to build it,
Yes.
how to run the software.
Yes.
And You personally programmed all the EPROMs, I think. Is that correct?
Not all, but a lot of EPROMs. I had to build my own EPROM programmers, which could program 5 EPROMs at a time. 5 EPROMs because I had 5 zero insertion force sockets.
Yeah.
Yes,
Right.
and it was pretty fast. I've got those EPROMs in envelopes, so I had to unpack them, to put them in the programmer, program them, pack them back, and somebody from Galaxia magazine sent them back to those.
Were these
guys.
2708s?
They were 2708 and 2716 and 2732.
Oh, okay.
This 2716 was the character generator, and 2732 contained the firmware.
Yeah, right.
Yes. So the whole firmware took only 4 kilobytes.
Wow.
At that time. After that, I made the extension to that firmware. It was EEPROM B with some more arithmetic functions and assembler and disassembler and so on.
What kind of peripherals could you attach?
Well, you had the universal parallel bus, and you could attach anything you wish to it. So it was open for
Expansion.
Expansion, yes.
Yeah. I think you added the B model, excuse me, the B model ROMs accommodated a printer as well, I think. Is that right?
For printer? Oh, I don't remember.
You don't remember? Okay.
I don't remember that. Yes, I think that it was. You could list your program with printer. Yes, you are right. You're right. It was.
So what was the most surprising thing for you about the Galaxia?
The reaction and the number of built units. You know, when we prepared it, the author of the first issue of Galaxia was Dejan Ristanvoić, my friend, which I met when we had to start preparing that first issue. And so there were actually just 2 authors at that time. It was Dejan and me, and the editor for that first issue was Jovan Regasek. There were just 3 of us which actually did the first issue of that magazine. And when we finished our job and waiting for the press to release the first issue, then we were sitting and having a little rest after such a huge job. And Jovan Regasek asked, "What do you think? How many readers will build this computer?" And I said, I think that it's that I'm an optimist, but I would be very happy if 50 readers build this computer.
Wow.
And then Dan said, "Oh no, I think that 200, that there will be 200." And Jova said, "Oh no, don't be fooled, there will be 500." And we said, "Oh no, that's too much." But only 1 month after that, we've got 8,000 letters of readers who made it and who just successfully made it, and it was working. It was incredible for me.
Wow.
And so we estimate that there were about 10,000 of people who do it with their own hands.
Do you know what kind of people these were? Were they young? Were they old? Were they...
I think that they were predominantly young.
So
now I still get letters and emails from those people from all around the world, and who say, you changed my life with that project, and so on. You can imagine about that, because they just made it with their hands, and it worked, and it was just like magic for them. So I see why they just accepted it as their profession, and they just fall in love with that.
Right. Did you have any competitors at the time?
Not at the time, but maybe 1 year after that, there were a lot of competition.
Was that the Lola 8?
I beg your pardon?
The Lola?
Lola 8, there was Orao, which means eagle, Galeb, which is seagull, Peckham.
Oh yeah, Peckham.
Yeah.
I saw that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And but most of those computers were just clones. Of Apple computer and some other computers, but all of them were actually clones.
Like a Sinclair clone, maybe, or something?
There was no Sinclair clone at that time.
Yeah.
But mostly Apple clones, Apple II clones.
So one of the really interesting things about your computer, the Galaxia, that I want to chat with you about is the distribution of software over radio.
Oh.
That is really interesting. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, sure. Actually, my friend Zoran Modli, which is a famous radio host in Serbia, it was his idea and the idea of Jovan Regasek, which was the editor of the first issue of the magazine. They just got the idea to publish it through the radio, because Zoran Modli had his radio show each week, and he just let, because at that time, I guess that now I have to say that at that time there were no hard disks, there were no floppy disks. You had to record your software, your program, on the cassette recorder, and it was in audio range.
Right.
So that it could be recorded on the cassette, just like any other audio recording, and it lasted maybe for 1 or 2 minutes for the average program, so you can reload it back from the cassette. But thanks to the fact that it was in audio range, you could also publish it with any other audio media. So Zoran said, why not publish it in his radio show? And I was quite skeptical about that. I thought that people would hate it because it was really annoying sound, not pleasant for listening.
Right.
But he was brave enough to do so, and he published not only the programs, but also he had his electronic magazine, like data, not a program data, but readable data.
Oh.
So he published his first electronic wireless magazine at year 1983.
Ooh, that's really interesting.
Yes, it's really interesting.
So people would listen to his show with their tape recorder ready.
Yes.
And
recorded it on the tape and use it to.
And was it pretty reliable as a method?
Yes, it worked.
Really?
It worked fine.
Oh,
yes,
wow.
It worked great.
And was this the station? Was it Belgrade 202? Is that
it was, yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Belgrade 202 and Studio B also.
Studio B.
Yes.
Do you know of any other people that were doing this, distributing software over the radio?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's very unusual.
Yes.
I think it happened in East Germany as well, but I'm actually going to write an article about it.
Yeah.
Because it's a really unusual.
I don't know about it.
It's very interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
Tell us a little bit about your colleague, Dejan Ristanvoić, who wrote the article initially about the Galaxia.
Yes, I owe him so much about that project because he was actually the person who wrote the first issue of computers in your home magazine. He helped me a lot while I was developing the operating system for Galaxia and basic interpreter. We spent a lot of hours together working on it and making the concept. And at the same time, he also wrote his articles for that first issue. And if it was a huge success about that do-it-yourself project, it is also his work and his big effort to do so.
Thank you.
Also, I should mention Zoran Modli, which was a radio host who did a lot of job to promote computers to his audience, and also Jovan Regasek, which was the editor of the first issue.
Right.
Yeah, that started several men started the computer revolution in Yugoslavia.
Was there a way for a forum or a way for people to exchange software, to share software?
I think that most software was actually sold. I remember that I made a lot of programs, and when I mostly through Zoran Modli's the radio shows, it was displayed to the audience. After that, it was somewhere on the market, and you can buy it. I could buy it my own software also.
Right. Did the magazine that first introduced it, I think PCs in the Home, is that what it was called?
Yeah.
Did they publish software later on, in later issues?
Yes, but something happened with that magazine, and it just slowed down, and after some time it just stopped. That magazine was dead after just a few years, but some other magazines took the same audience and they just continued. Some of them even are active today.
At the time, could you get Western magazines like Popular Electronics or Byte magazine or any of those?
You could buy them. You could get them from US, but not much. The samples were in Serbia at that time. I was lucky to use those magazines because my friend Zoran Vasiljević had he had a lot of Byte magazines, Byte predominantly, and I could use them. Somehow they always came to me, and so I had a nice library of Byte magazines, a nice archive of Byte magazines, and I learned a lot from those magazines.
I mean, just to recap, you have no formal you had no formal training in engineering, is that right?
No.
You just learned it all yourself. That's pretty amazing.
It's another story with me. You know, first you have to understand the political situation is in former Yugoslavia. It's really not so easy to explain that. My wish was to just to study electronics, of course. And when I finished my elementary school and had to start secondary school, I just wanted to go to the school Nikola Tesla, which was for electronics. Exactly. But somehow I could not pass the exam, and I could not start learning electronics in that school. I really don't know how that happened, because there was some exam at the beginning. I'm sure that I worked, that I did it perfectly. Because it was predominantly mathematics at that exam, and 1 year before that I won the contest in the whole Yugoslavia. I was the first in Yugoslavia just in physics and mathematics.
Oh my gosh.
Contest. Yes, and I
Wow.
still have the golden medal from that contest. And can you imagine that just the next year I couldn't pass the exam,
Yeah.
and to learn electronics, which I wanted to learn.
Yeah.
I have the answer what happened actually. I heard it later, that those men who had to check all those exams, they just didn't do that. So they randomly took some number of students, and they just declared that they passed the exam, and we, the rest, just were cut away from it. Yes, I couldn't do anything about it. So I learned some other school which was for machine. How shall I say that? But the machine school.
Right.
But it was not the school that I wanted
Yeah.
to learn about, and after that I could not study electronics faculty because my rating was not so good for that. So I have to self-educate myself somehow, and that's what I was doing for my whole life after that. That's it.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Wow, you've accomplished a lot.
Yes. After a lot of time, you see, after the year 2000, I started also my own battle against the that's another field, completely another. Against the self-prophets, the astrologists, clairvoyants, and so on. We had a lot of them during the wartime in 90s. And I wrote several books about that, and those books were very popular at that time, and I was invited to TV shows and radio shows also, and I just was talking about critical thinking and creative thinking, and it was interesting for some schools and many secondary schools, predominantly secondary schools, invited me to talk the same thing to their students. And once I was in the same school that I was refused one from, and I was talking to their students, and they knew that they just followed. I had a lot of my projects at that time. I published more than 50, I think about 100 projects, do-it-yourself projects.
Wow.
Those students in that school just after my talk at that school said, well, we love your projects, and it's really nice, everything about it, but why didn't you study our school? And then I told them, yes, I wanted, but I couldn't.
Yeah, painful question.
Yes, it's very painful.
Yeah.
It's everything about that. Even when I think today about it, it's painful. But who knows what would happen? Maybe it's not important at that time.
Yeah.
Luckily, everyone who really wants to learn about something, he can learn about it, even before internet.
Yes.
And especially now when we have internet.
Right. Wow. Let's see, was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
I'd like to talk about the 90s.
Sure.
In that decade, we had a bloody war in Yugoslavia when Yugoslavia disassembled, and then we had the state Yugoslavia. Now we have Serbia, Croatia, Slovenia, Montenegro, Macedonia, and Bosnia. It was a very unhappy time. It makes me sad to think now about that time. It was a time of great poverty, death, war all around you, and everything was somehow going down at that time. At one moment, it was in year 95, I had to after some tragical events in my family, I had to leave the flat that I was in only 3 days, and I had somehow to do a lot of things. I left alone with my son, which was less than 2 years old, and I had to move somewhere. I didn't know where. And at that moment, I just didn't know what to do with all my prototypes of Galaxia computer. I had 6 or 7 of them, of those prototypes.
Right.
And I just threw all of them in the garbage. So I don't have them. No.
Right.
I'm sorry to say that. I'd like if I didn't do it, but that's just what happened.
It's in the past.
And yes, and after that, I wanted just to start something new. I made one very handy instrument with. I started working with the PIC microcontrollers. They are microchips controllers, and I made some very simple instrument, which is handheld instrument, which is at the same time logic probe and logic analyzer, and analyzer for serial protocol, and some other functions. They're in only one handheld instrument, battery operated, single chip instrument. And the most amazing thing was that the whole firmware was packed in only 1 kilobyte of firmware.
Wow.
And I sent an email to the people in Microchip, and they said, no, we cannot believe that all those functions can be packed in only 1 kilobyte. Can you send us a sample of that instrument? I sent them a sample, and they said, that's really amazing, you should write an article about it, you have to build some 5 more samples to send us. We shall use it in our conferences to show what is possible to do with only single microcontroller, and so on. They also offered me to be a consultant for that area. And in return, they just asked me how much it will cost. I said, I don't need money. I need your in-circuit emulator. system. They said, okay, that's all fine. I did that article, they published it, and as an application note, I think 689 application notes, AN 689 at the Microchip's site. And when time has come for them to send me that development system, they said, evidently you are under embargo and we cannot send you anything, we cannot communicate with you anything, and hopefully some better times will come, and goodbye. That's all. It was also sad for me. I've got that in circuit emulator some 8 years after that, which was not significant to me anymore at that time, but all the same, I can understand why they didn't send me that. But somehow everything that I started in those 10 years just didn't finish well. Everything was going down, and each project finished in the same way. So after that, when I was invited to the war by the army, and how computers saved my life.
Oh, really?
Yes, that's it. Can we continue it somehow?
Yes. Just go ahead. We'll cut it out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there is one more thing about those tragic 90s. War was all around, and once I've got the letter from the army where they invited me just to join the army. And what could I do? I just packed and just went there. And we had a few days of training in some small place around Belgrade. And at one break time, the officer asked everybody what he is doing in at his home, what is his job. And when he asked me, I said him that it's something about computers. I didn't know how to explain it to him, that I'm working just embedded microcontroller projects. I said it's about computers, and he said, "Oh, we have some the Apple II computer which is broken, and which is broken for years, and no one could repair it. Can you try?" And I said, "Yes, but I cannot do it here. I can do it at home." And they drove me to home with that computer, and of course I repaired it, and came the other day and brought with that computer, and it was working perfectly. And at that moment, the officer came to me, gave me my ID, and said, "Now go home. That place where we are going is too dangerous, and we need you alive. Mm-hmm. Who knows when this thing will be broken again. So we need you. Go home.
Wow.
And be ready." And that was it.
Man, that was close.
That was it. Yes. No one ever asked me about that computer. No one ever contacted me about that computer anymore. So I don't know what happened, and I don't want to know it.
Mm. Right. Anything else you'd like to say?
I think that's all about that.
Yes. So, well, I think this has been a great interview, and I thank you so much for sharing the computer Galaxia with us and for donating it to us. That is really wonderful.
Thank you. It's a great honor for me, really.
Oh, the honor is ours, believe me. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.